Today is Friday, July 26th. We're now live with the latest in the crypto world. It's 9:30 a.m. in New York City, 2:30 p.m. in London, 10:30 p.m. in Tokyo, and 3:30 p.m. here in Malta. I'm Nicholas Jackman, standing in for Leah Heilpern. We'll be joined by Jason Fernandez and Pascal Van Nive to discuss the latest on the markets after we take a quick look at some of the market indicators. The cryptocurrency index, CCI 30, has increased slightly to stand at 3,800 points. It stands nearly 20% in the red so far in July. The index has gained approximately 75% year to date. The 30-day Bitcoin volatility index has stayed close to the 7% mark for 9 days in a row now. Trading has continued to slow down. The CoinMarketCap's website daily traded volume indicator has dropped towards the $50 billion level. The Messari website's Real 10 volume measures at $1.56 billion. The Bitcoin dominance indicator shows no significant changes over the past 24 hours. The Crypto King holds just slightly less than 65% of the total market share. The top 5 digital assets are mostly trading lower. Bitcoin has yet again stepped out of the $10,000 psychological level. Ether trades at slightly less than $220. The 31-cent support line has held for XRP and is currently down by just 1%. Litecoin trades at just slightly more than $90 on a daily decline of 2%. And lastly, Bitcoin Cash is the only top 5 asset trading in the green. Bitcoin Cash returned over the $300 level in a sharp rise. The Coin360 heat map shows a red picture as most of the crypto assets are trading slightly lower. According to the Token Spread website, the BitMEX and XMO exchanges have the biggest arbitrage for the Bitcoin dollar pair, and it is close to 1.4%. The biggest spread is on the XMO marketplace, and it is close to 0.4%. We'll now take a quick look at some of the characteristics of Ether Zero. The project aims this to be the generation of smart contract platforms, a new generation. It looks to offer contract capability with zero transaction fees, high transaction processing capacity, and nearly real-time transactions. The ecosystem's native token trades with the ticker ETZ. Masternode, developers, and users all need to hold a certain amount of the token. The price of this digital asset peaked at 54 cents in June of last year. Currently, it can be purchased for slightly more than 13 cents. We'll now review the performance of various cryptocurrency asset classes as grouped by the Messari website. The infrastructure group posts a decline of nearly 1% as the majority of the assets are trading in the red. The media and entertainment category is the most bearish asset class today with a drop of more than 4%. Theta token is the only asset trading in the green. The financial sector is down by 1% and there is red across the board. The currency category is the only group that trades in the green. Bitcoin Cash is the bullish driver. And lastly, the services section posts a decline of just under 1.4%. This is where the 5 major cryptocurrency categories stand so far this Friday. We'll now focus on the most significant moves among the top 100 cryptocurrencies. Then we'll be back with our crypto experts after a short break.
180 different countries all around the world, which makes us grow in like a sphere.
We are stronger than ever.
Have these questions answered without disclosing anything.
AI field is mostly controlled by a few large corporations.
Much busier, bigger than ever.
In the mid-2020s. I do think that will come.
We should kind of keep in mind that we want the world to be a better place.
$15 billion a day. This is incredible.
People find a way to create infrastructure.
I think knowledge is one of the most important things in the world.
We laid the foundation for the distributed trust model that Satoshi builds on.
It does come with some risks, but at the same time, I think it's an opportunity for countries.
Individuals miss the boat on a market, they miss the boat. When the institutions miss the boat, they bring the boat back.
This is BloxLive TV.
And we're back with our crypto experts, Jason Fernandez, COO and co-founder of AE Token, and Pascal Van Nyf. He's the founder and CEO of the Future of Trust, and he currently serves Crypto Daily as their Chief Strategy Officer. Great to have you both on the show. Cool.
Hey, hi there, how are you?
Happy to have you here. We're going to talk about price first. Jason, I wouldn't mind if you take it away for us. We're going to talk about basically this key psychological level. So the price of Bitcoin, it's once again stepped south of that level, south of the $10,000 mark. It came as overall trading activity has been on the slowing down. As reported earlier, the CoinMarketCap's website daily volume stands at less than $50 billion now. What's your take on these most recent market moves, Jason?
So I think we've been trading sideways for the past week or so. For some reason, Bitcoin just can't seem to be able to make it significantly above the 10K mark. And I think this comes down mostly to fears of regulation. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin recently made some remarks, I think it was yesterday, implying that Bitcoin was short-lived and that he wasn't stocking up on any. Also, I think regulation would represent sort of bearish news for Bitcoin and sort of the negative regulation that's coming out. On the other hand, there are some positive indicators and some bullish news that have come out as well. So recently, they had new research coming out of the Grayscale Investments that found something like over a third, something like 36% of U.S. investors would consider buying Bitcoin, and that represents something like a market of more than 21 million investors. And that's, of the general population. The other thing is investors are just constantly looking for new ways to sort of diversify their portfolio, and mainly because traditional assets and markets have begun to move very much in sync. And I think a lot of savvy investors have recognized that Bitcoin and a lot of other digital currencies sort of have a price action all of their own. And so they provide a diversification far beyond the standard 60-40 stock bond portfolio sort of allocation that many investors are probably used to. Also, the interesting thing is a significant amount of retail investors in the Bitcoin and crypto space. I mean, the total number rather of retail investors in the Bitcoin and crypto space has remained mostly unchanged, despite various bearish factors and expectations that institutional investment has been growing. So it has been growing, but probably not as much as you'd expect. Also, there's sort of a significant crossover between people that buy Bitcoin and people that are sort of gold investors. But if you so it sort of explains sort of this impression that Bitcoin has of sort of being a safe haven asset, and that's sort of become more and more true over time. And I think when you put in factors like Brexit or the increased tension in the Gulf states, that could see price of Bitcoin soaring. So recently we saw the strategist at JP Morgan say that they believe that the dollar could lose its status as the world's dominant currency. And it could, it should obviously see it appreciate over time. And probably the only thing to guard against that would be things like Bitcoin and gold.
Okay. Certain statistics at the moment, let's go on to Pascal if we can. They're showing that Bitcoin is at its least bullish over the past 5-month period. Do you agree with those comments?
Yeah, I think. I think to that point, I think that's a very least bullish. I go typically when I look at Bitcoin pricing, I go to Sally Ho's analysis most of the time, on Crypto Daily, obviously, to get a little bit of an idea. Because like what Jason is saying, there's so much volatility in this market, and there's so many factors that are going. And so typically, I like to refer to some of the technical analysis that we see from Sally Ho and the likes, where she basically is looking forward to so some levels that would be, she's stating, I think it was 9,100 all the way down to an 8,600 level price. And again, these are some of those, of those technical analysis that we will find online, that I think it's important to look at that as well. But on the other hand, looking at all the tensions, and like you said, and people, more and more people actually also come to us that have also seen a huge history in gold, and they're looking for the Bitcoin investments as well along the way. So yeah, guys. So I think that's where we stand.
Looking at the markets, just in traditional financial markets, it looks like there's upside again, or people are believing in upside after the recent spate of earnings reports. Futures are up. The cuts on the other side, with obviously the large portion of this recent bull run has been based on institutional investment, but retail too. Could it be that people now that they see in the safer haven, so to speak, in the traditional markets, now they see upside there? Could it be that they're taking money out of the crypto market?
I honestly wouldn't know. That's like speculating. I think that could definitely be something that's playing. But yet on the other hand, I think in the next couple of weeks we'll see what will really go on as the tensions in the Middle East are arising. And yeah, so that's. But yeah, I don't know.
There's a very disparate price projections going for Bitcoin at the moment, between 7.5 and 20, somewhere in between. We'll find out in the future. We'll see where it is tomorrow. All right, let's go back on to, I guess, what's been on many people's thoughts, Libra, and where it is at the moment. There was the earnings call yesterday, and Mark Zuckerberg, he spoke on the company's plans during it. He said the company will work on the regulator concerns over Libra for however long it takes. But he also pointed out that the company is very focused on payments in with fiat currencies as well. Do you think there's potential that this fiat model might work so well that they could ditch the Libra project?
I think obviously we see Facebook has already been dabbling in the fiat space for a long time, getting money in and out through that way. I think obviously what they're afraid of, and what we see in everything that's going on, the scrutiny from the UK and the scrutiny from the US, they're basically saying we keep on pounding what's really going on. I think when I look at this whole Libra project and what's going on in that space, I think what Facebook typically wants, they're after their main currency, in my opinion, is data, right? And with cryptocurrency and getting funds over them, then all of a sudden Facebook would get a lot of insight in how people are actually spending their money beyond what people are doing with a normal transaction on fiat. So I think that they will continue to obviously push Libra, because there's a lot of gain in getting data analysis and data analytics from what's going on across the board and across the world.
Thank you, Pascal. Jason, just on this regulatory issue, one of the main topics today is that the US Securities and Exchange Commission has issued a no-action letter to Pocketful of Quarters. It's the second letter of its kind. First time it's been done for an ERC20 standard token. They're a cross-game token, the blockchain, and of course there's going to be a lot of restrictions on how that token can be used in order for this to be allowed. Do you see it as a big step forward in the industry?
So I would say it's an important step. This is the second company that I know of anyway that's received a letter like this, but it's been somewhat overhyped. I mean, this is essentially a glorified arcade coupon model. And we know that has been around for a long time. David Busses has been using it. It's nothing particularly innovative. It's certainly not innovative from a financial perspective, from an instrument perspective. Also, the rules behind essentially having it function essentially get permission to function are really onerous. I mean, I know that to create an approved account, developers and influencers would have to be subject to KYC, AML checks, at account initiation. We also know that this currency, cryptocurrency, is supposed to be made continuously available to gamers in unlimited quantities, but at fixed price, so the price can't be elastic. Also, they can't use any of their funds from the sale of those quarters to build the platform, which has been fully developed already and will be fully functional and operational immediately. But keep in mind, I mean, even in an arcade system, the arcade can use pre-sold tokens to fund further development. So this is sort of an odd thing. Also, but it's par for the course for a lot of cryptocurrencies. I mean, certainly that would be considered a security, and if you're using the funds to develop the product. But essentially, they're saying also that it's marketed only to gamers, specifically for consumption of that token within that system. And again, that's very similar to sort of what Dave & Buster's have. It's just sort of a more digital model of that. So I don't think this is as groundbreaking as one would imagine. This is a fairly standard token. And I think that if you were to apply these same rules that the SEC is looking at, or the standard that SEC has used to approve or to send out this letter, a lot of ICOs would basically just not pass this at all. Also, just to add to the previous question about Facebook, I think the whole question about whether they're going to be using a lot of cash, I think that's kind of a bit of PR, because I mean, if it was really that easy to use cash and it wasn't that expensive to move around, if fiat was such a great model, I highly doubt they would have spent so much money trying to come up with a crypto solution. So as far as fiat is concerned, it's expensive to move around, period. So I think that's just a bit of PR on Zuckerberg's part, and also I think it's sort of a reflection of the pushback that they're getting from regulators. They're already pushing back their date of launch, so certainly they didn't expect as much pushback that they've gotten. So I think it's a little bit of PR on his part.
Fantastic. I think they're still a little while off from their payment and settlements gateway and the monetization of that. Let's look to Zuckbucks. Pascal, can we move on to yourself? And this, maybe you can play second fiddle here to, sorry, Jason. Let's talk about, well, a potentially dirty word, ICOs. It was a buzzword back in 2017. Not so anymore. All right, we've seen some success, however, with these new variants, the initial exchange offerings this year. Some limited projects. Could you, Jason, just enlighten us a little, just what you see as the key difference between an ICO and an IEO? So
they're very similar in sort of macro levels. They both generally have a private sales phase, a public sale phase, and then in the case of ICOs anyways, that's followed by a listing. In the case of an IEO, essentially the same mechanism that's used to run what would normally be termed an ICO is essentially used to list the token. So the token is immediately listed on an exchange. Whereas with an ICO, a lot of times you'd have a period where the ICO is finished, but the token hasn't quite been listed, so it's not liquid. With an IEO, you're sort of guaranteed that liquidity, because you know pretty much as soon as the IEO is through, that token will be listed and it'll be available for purchase and obviously for sale. So there is sort of that additional benefit, and I think overall it does seem like the way to move forward, because to some extent the exchange basically vets the crypto project, which is something that you don't really see. You don't see a lot of vetting in ICOs, and that's really one of the major problems. So I think ultimately, if the crypto exchanges are able to get good enough at vetting these projects, as opposed to just taking out anyone that comes up to them, they're essentially putting their name behind these projects, and ultimately you'll have just a few exchanges that are able to successfully pull off IEOs just because they have such a good reputation. So to some extent, the industry did sort of need some degree of gatekeeping, where at least somebody would vet these projects before they became, before the general mass could invest in them. I think IEOs sort of fill that gap that we were seeing before.
Jason, just based on your understanding, the IEOs, or Pascal, you can jump in here if you like as well. So ICOs always had the pre-round, the pre-funding, where the VCs could come in and take first dibs. Is that still in effect here with the IEOs?
Yeah, I'm sure most IEOs are raising funds privately. In fact, that sort of helps them to have a better shot at the IEO itself. But Pascal, maybe you can jump in here.
Well, again, the IEO are saying that obviously they provide more transparency, more liquidity, and more safety. I think that's been their ball game all along. But to what you said, Jason, as well, I think when you look at all the exchanges that are taking on those projects and their vetting, I don't really think that we could leave the due diligence to exchanges to some extent. Well, if you look at the news and if you look at some of the scrutiny that even the big exchanges are under right now, I think we have to scratch, like I said, behind our head to say, well, the exchange, so to speak, is the best way to vet a project. I think common sense is always the best way to vet any project. And therefore, I do believe that if you take an ICO and you take the properties and you take the strong propositions of some of the ICOs that are out there, I would absolutely not discount them. I think even there's going to be a comeback of the ICOs again, but with that mindset of people doing their own due diligence. Because when the IEOs came on board, say, well, you know what, we have a platform, and on our platform everybody is KYC, and we do the AML and we do everything for you. Whereas I think again, common sense would dictate even an ICO to say, hey guys, I am a good project. What I want solid people to invest, right? Not invest, or you never can say that. My apologies, but I want solid people to participate in this. And at the end of the day, both IEOs and ICOs are both a token that provides utility. So again, I have to disagree with the IEO being the way to move forward and being the way. I see too much scrutiny there. Again, I would say from my point of view, for everybody that wants to participate in utility projects and tokens, do your own due diligence, right? And again, look at the level of transparency that people are providing and the level of protection. So that's my take on it.
Pascal, you said something of interest there. You project the return of the ICO?
Well, I would say yes. I think we're going to see a return, and we're going to see a maybe even a renaissance. That's in a short time, right? We're talking about 2 years. But yeah, I think people again will wake up to the idea that utility and participating in projects that provide utility are going to revive, and people are going to open up again to it. Again, because I think like the tree has been shaken. Again, also in the exchanges, our whole industry, if you ask me, is a little bit under scrutiny left and right. I mean, obviously it started with the Libra project, but look at the big exchanges. Everybody is shaking some of the trees. And yeah, I do believe that ICOs are coming back.
Okay, I think before 100%. That, we're going to see a lot of these blockchain startups have been promised the earth in terms of volume on different exchanges and have their exchange offer product, and then where are the customers? Where's the buy volume? It doesn't exist. Yeah. You'll see that happening soon.
No, again, I think what you see right now, and maybe you have a different opinion, but what I see is especially in this space, there are now projects coming up that have an actual already an MVP. It's not like this big idea. Oh, you know what? I'm going to put Pascal's brains on the blockchain and let's see what's going to happen from that, right? I mean, I tell you, 2 years ago, I sat on the table with a couple of guys, and I did a little more blah blah around it, but I had them actually interested in looking at how can we invest in that. Whereas I'm going, guys, this is not the way. It's not about ideas. No, it's about a new funding way, a new way of getting participants, a way of providing utility, right, through tokens. And hopefully, again, through token inflows and outflows, there are going to be projects that will stand the test of time, right, and that will show the world that ICOs or utility tokens are definitely a way to move forward. Because not everything can be captured in an ST or in a security token offering. There are definitely solid use cases for utility.
And we've seen some great ones. We're going to stay on this angle with regards to IEOs, ICOs, and most of the assets that have been sold in these initial exchange offerings so far, they are above offering price. At the same time, however, they're in the red when compared with when they have been traded on the actual exchange itself. Does it suggest that they're been used just purely for speculation as opposed to the utility you speak of, Pascal?
I think absolutely. Let's be honest. This I still refer to this space as a little bit of a Wild West. So yeah, I think a lot of it has been done by has been run by speculation. And again, another thing I see there is that people are slowly waking up. They're slow, and there's a lot of good initiatives out there that are now kind of being the watchdog as what's going on in this industry, right? And yeah, that's my thinking.
Jason, what's your thinking on this?
So I think overall you need to realize that they're mostly dealing with startups. And startups do have a much higher failure rate in general than a lot of other companies. And I don't think that this is, if you look at like 98%, or even if something like all but the top 20 cryptocurrencies essentially fail, I don't think that would be outside of the realm of what would be statistically expected, or at least somewhat statistically expected for startup companies. So I think to a large extent the sector gets like a bad name when really it's not that different. I mean, why don't you just say, hey, let's not invest in our companies, because the majority of those end up being failures. Why invest in smartwatches? Because the vast majority, we know that Pebble, for example, failed. So it's sort of odd to hold crypto to a higher standard. On my second point, I don't believe that we're going to see a huge revival of ICOs. I'm not saying that they won't come back more so than they are now, because now they don't hardly exist. But I don't think that you're going to have a huge influx on them. Certainly not more so than 2017, specifically because I think regulations are going to come in and make a lot of what was possible in 2017 not even possible, right now. And I think when it comes down to that, yeah, sure, it's great if you can do your own research. Everybody is encouraged to do their own research. But the fact is, the vast majority of people, this is a retail market still. It's not an institutional investor market, and retail investors are fairly hype-driven. So you really can't expect them to really do their research, or it's not really realistic. It'll end up coming down to having a few good exchanges sort of being gatekeepers. And yeah, as Pascal pointed out, there are problems with exchanges sort of accepting any offer that comes to them. But that is sort of the thing that will start paring down as some of these start failing. I mean, people are going to think twice about the exchanges that they thought vetted them. So there has to be having some vetting is useful, particularly from an exchange. I don't disagree that doing your own research can mitigate some of that. But the fact, one of the big pluses of an IEO versus an ICO is, with an ICO, you're not 100% sure when that token is going to get listed, so you don't really know whether you have that liquidity. However, with an IEO, you're guaranteed that liquidity. You're guaranteed it's going to get listed. So that's, I think, a huge plus for many people that are choosing to go with IEOs, both from a perspective of a company raising money, but also from a perspective of people deciding what they want to invest in. Again, they're utility tokens, so this would not be a traditional investment, but that's basically how people would be looking at it.
Sure. Jason, just your final thought on this area, and yourself afterwards, Pascal, if possible. To any blockchain startup founder at the moment, wondering how they're going to get their development funds, should they hold on, wait for regulation, see how it's going to work, or go the ICO, IEO route?
So I would say it's not a good idea to wait for regulation. I think regulation has rarely come in and solved a whole bunch of things. Generally, it's just a start for more regulation and more iterations of that. I think that a company that's planning on launching, if they've got a product, they've got a team that they're proud of, they should just take it to market ASAP. I would almost suggest that doing an ICO right now is practically useless, just because they've just had such a poor success rate lately. I would sort of, if it was a startup fund, I would probably recommend that they spend time raising money privately first, then spend some time building out the product, because again, they need a significantly decent product if they're going to do anything close to an IEO in 2019. And then probably my recommendation would be to go for an IEO as opposed to an ICO. I'm not disagreeing that you can have an ICO that has KYC, AML, all these sort of safeguards built in, but the fact that it becomes immediately listed, I think, is a huge plus for a lot of investors.
So bootstrap it first, prove their mettle, and then go forward for higher funding. Yourself, Pascal?
Well, I agree fully with the fact that don't wait for regulations. I think if we wait for that, I would be a gray old man have everything fully regulated, right, at the pace that things are going to right now. So yes, I think, and I 100% agree, I think it's very important to continue to build your MVP, to get initially some seed capital in from friends and family. Unlike Jason, of course, I would not necessarily say go for an IEO or even an ICO. I think, again, what makes sense is as a startup, you look at the opportunities that are in front of you, right? You look at what is the best route to go, and take it from there. And I would never say, okay, the IEO is the best way, nor would I say the ICO is the best way. I think on a per case basis, that needs to be decided. Because again, good ICOs obviously should take the learnings of the past. They should take some of the ideas, even when it comes to listing. I think if you're an ICO, you have to get your listing agreements, in place ahead of time. Right, and then also what I do think with the IEOs versus the ICOs, I think a almost like a listing manager, somebody that will go and get the liquidity on the market. That those are some of the things that you need to incorporate. So in a way, I think the ICO, or even the whole utility token raising or fundraising that's occurring now, I think that is kind of shifting towards a much broader, much broader team. You need much more people. You really need to have a good team to get to the next level.
Right, great insights there. Much appreciate your time, Pascal and Jason. Thanks for being with us on the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for hosting it.
Great. Before we sign off, I have a last-minute update just from our editorial staff regarding the crypto market. The total crypto market capitalization has been largely trading sideways as it increased slightly above the $270 billion mark. Trading remains slower than what we've been used to during recent months. CoinMarketCap website's daily volume measures at $50 billion. Bitcoin has continued trading close to the $10,000 mark, this time slightly south of this key psychological level. Well, that's all for Friday's Crypto Now live show. We thank Jason Fernandez and Pascal Van Knife for their expert analysis. We thank the audience for joining us and invite you all to accompany us every weekday at this same time.